Come on then, John, time you was getting your pit boots on with your sark and moleskin trousers, time you was on your way, time you were learning the collier's job and earning the collier's pay. Come on then, Jim, it's time to go, time you were working down below, time to be handling a pick and shovel, you starved at the pit today, time you were learning the pitman's job and earning a pitman's pay. Come on then, die, it's almost light, time you were off to the anthracite. The morning mist is on the valley, time you were on your way, time we're learning the miner's job and earning a miner's pay. Getting your pit boots on with your sark and moleskin trousers, time you was on your way, time you were learning the collier's job and earning a collier's pay.
The fate of Bothwell Hall was unique. Built to serve the Hamilton Palace Colliery, in 1965 the entire village was demolished when the land on which it stood was included in plans for Strathclyde Country Park. For centuries the unique properties of coal had been utilised to heat the hearths and warm the blood of those who gathered around them in the castles and abbeys of this often cold land. Later it was used to distill seawater to make salt, a tradition that continued here at Prestonpans well into the 20th century. But it was the Industrial Revolution of the 18th and 19th centuries which saw coal become a vital natural resource of strategic importance. There were indeed few industrial processes which did not involve coal, be it making soap or even delivering it. Be it powering the jute mills of Dundee, the iron ore factories of Falkirk, or the transport systems of the modern age. Coal became king. As the 20th century dawned, coal still reigned supreme, but as the pits of Ayrshire and Lanarkshire were worked out, the surrounding communities struggled to survive. Many indeed disappeared, and in others, though the miners' rows remain, they no longer house the men, women and yes, children who helped to hew the coal from the very bowels of the earth.
To let you understand, my father came from Lanarkshire. He came from the pits that was closing in Lanark. He came through here, so they built an estate here for incoming miners. That was in Bonnyrigg.
Yes, my father was down the pit and his father was down the pit. But he actually told me not to go down the pit. He wanted me to do something else, but I didn't know what to do a trade, so I just went down the pit.
All the people that where I was born, it was all I'm not saying they were all underground workers, but some of them were engineers and that, but they were all attached to the pits.
When I was about 18, 19, I did my coal face training. I did 60 days coal face training, and I was put on another job, pulling and drawing, where after the fillers had been in, that's the strippers, we went in, filled the rest of the coal off, moved the conveyor belt into the new track, and drew the waste off, let the roof in.
Right from the beginning, the prospect of work in the coalfields attracted men from all over Scotland and from south of the border and even abroad. Many a Highland croft was left deserted as the industrial expansion sucked more and more people into the coalfields of central Scotland. They came at a time when the favoured distribution method was canal boat and then steamer to the export markets of the world. It was a tough, dirty, dangerous job, and not one to which all would be suited. You did not have to be born into mining, but once you were in, you had to live it. And the emphasis was on had to, for until the 1800s, miners were treated little better than slaves.
Miner's life is like a sailor's board a ship to cross the waves. Every day his life's in danger, still he ventures being brave. Watch the rocks, they're falling daily, careless miners always fail. Keep your hand upon your wages and your eye upon the scale. Union miners stand together, do not heed the coal board's tale. Keep your hand upon your wages and your eye upon the scale. You've been docked and docked again, boys. You've been loaded 3 for 1. What have you to show for working since your mining days begun? Worn out shoes and worn out miners, blackened lungs and faces pale. Keep your hand upon your wages and your eye upon the scale. Union miners stand together, do not heed the coal board's tale. Keep your hand upon your wages and your eye upon the scale. In conclusion, bear in memory, keep this password in your mind. Worker strength cannot be broken when in union we combine. Stand up tall and stand together, victory for you prevail. Keep your hand upon your wages and your eye upon the scale. Union miners stand together, do not heed the coal board's tale. Keep your hand upon your wages and your eye upon the scale.
All the districts weren't the same. Some districts were better than others. But some districts, like in the south side you worked in, the water was pouring down on you. You would only be in it 5 minutes. You'd put your oilskins on, put a wee scarf thing around here. You would strip off and just wear maybe a t-shirt, a pair of shorts, put your oilskin trousers on, your oilskin jacket on, a wee thing around here. You would go in, and you would only be in there 5 minutes, and you'd be soaking. Both with sweat, because anything that's like oilskins like that draws the heat for by the water running down on top of you. And it was terrible. These were conditions you could never work in. And for all the water money you were getting, it was usually about, under these conditions, it was never anything from 20 pence to 50 pence a day.
No, I mean, when I worked, it was days before the lottery, I mean, but everybody did the football pools. And we had a linesman, Gus, I mean, he just helped the surveyors and he actually extended the lines, that's why it was called a linesman. But most of the time, he carried our equipment for us. And we were always chatting, what would you do if you won the pools? And his ambition was to take his wife and family to Ayr to Butlins for a fortnight. So if he won the pools, that's what he was going to do.
You thought you were well paid, but that was the papers telling you were well paid. Big difference, you know, big difference.
By the time this film was shot, the days of serfdom had all but been forgotten. Nevertheless, these footballers of Cowdenbeath could not escape being labelled by their profession. Even on the pitch, the Cowdenbeath team was known as the Miners. Entry to the ground took you past number 7 Pit Bing, and the raised terracing was built up with colliery waste. Some of the supporters look as if they've just walked straight out of the pit, but there were no pithead baths in those days. Were it not for the fact that the Miners had gained promotion to the First Division, there was little to cheer during the years following the Great War. Much of the skilled workforce had been lost. Export markets had been lost too, and never recovered. 40% of miners who survived the war were out of work, and the production records of 1913 would never again be in danger. It seemed that the coal which flowed through the arteries of the British Empire and fueled the industrial might on which it was founded was itself faltering. None of this, of course, would worry these wee bairns, enjoying the annual co-op parade down Cowdenbeath's High Street, or indeed the tramcar drivers held up behind them. Tramcars, incidentally, powered by electricity, generated by coal. Yet in Lanarkshire and Ayrshire particularly, the pits were in terminal decline, close to exhaustion, and struggling to survive the worldwide economic depression. When the general strike of 1926 ended, the miners stayed out, poorly paid, badly housed, and in many cases badly treated by the private mine owners. They had little to lose. Their bond was adversity, and the community spirit was just as strong then as it was in more modern times.
My father was. He was killed in the pit when I was 10. Well, he had an accident on a Saturday morning, and he died on the Monday night. I was 10-year-old.
But I always remember, I mean, in the Miners' Rows, everybody knew everybody, and nobody locked the door. And if you were hungry, you get your tea at anybody's house. And I said, I've not had my tea. And, oh, come in, have your tea. And it was a much more friendly community. I mean, you borrowed off everybody, but you always paid back. You would get a piece of jam from somebody, or your tea from somebody. If somebody was out, another family would look after you till your mum came back home. And it was typical Miners' Rows. Monday was wash day, because I always remember rows and rows of sheets on the line on a Monday, whereas nowadays people do a washing 2 or 3 times a week in their tumble dryers, but Monday was wash days there.
Well, people used to give us coal, like, you know. I used to have a bar, I used to go around different streets and they used to say, come and get some coal. We were never short of coal, because people were just giving us it, you know. Everybody, the close-knit community, everybody knew everybody. Yeah. There's some hard times right now.
The strike of 1926 achieved little, and a recovery of sorts was interrupted by a gentleman called Hitler. But even before the end of World War II, confidence was returning, and the Five Coal Company was proud to show off its new state-of-the-art colliery at Comrie.
And now, here in Scotland, is the pit head of the New World, right in the heart of the countryside. The coal seams under the surface of the ground were proved by boring, and when their extent was known, mining engineers were sent to America and the continent to study all that was new in mining practice. The surface buildings of the pit head are built on modern symmetrical lines in the form of a square. One shaft is used for transporting men and the other for coal. Safety, efficiency, and economy are the three considerations of the plant, and there is no longer any reason for a new coal mine to be a blot on the landscape. The fountain serves a dual purpose, for it cools the water used by the winding machinery. But the plant is not restricted to buildings and machinery. The miners take an all-round course in mining engineering and supplement their practical training by attendance at the mining school near the colliery.
I've travelled east and I've travelled west, and I've been to Kirkcaldy with the bonniest lass that e'er I spied. She was following her collier laddie. Oh, world of thee, my bonny lass, come tell me what they call ye. Bonny Jean Gordon is my name, and I'm following my collier laddie. Do you see yon high, high hills? The sun shines on sae broadly. They are all mine and shall be thine. Can you leave your collier laddie? Though ye had all that the sun shines on, and the earth conceals sae lovely, I'd turn my back on you and it all, and embrace my collier laddie. Then he has to her father again, till her father again say brawly, would you gie to me your daughter fair, that's fallen a collier laddie? But I'll gie her rents, and I'll gie her lands, and I'll make her a lady. I'll raise her up to a higher degree, and to follow a collier laddie. Then he has stayed his daughter again, till his daughter gin say broadly, says you'll gang with this broad gentleman, and forsake your collier laddie, for he'll gie your lands, and he'll gie your rents, and he'll make you a lady, he'll make you in a higher degree, and to follow a collier laddie. Why, when he hears rents, and I when he hears lands, and I'll no be his lady, I'll make my bed in the collier's nook, and lie down with my collier laddie, for love is the bargain for me. Though a wee court house should have me, and the world afore me, to win my bread and share with my collier laddie.
Comrie was certainly revolutionary. Its flat-roof buildings reflected the architectural style of the time, and air was blown into the pit rather than being extracted from it. The baths were opened in 1942 by MP Tom Smith, himself a former miner. And Herbert Morrison, the Home Secretary, famously described the pit as the cat's pyjamas. Initially, the pit was designed to employ a workforce up to 1,000 strong, producing an estimated 4,000 tonnes of coal per day. But, despite massive investment and technological advance, the pit underachieved and closed prematurely 46 years after it had opened. Nonetheless, the end of World War II prompted optimistic forecasts for economic growth in Scotland, and not just for coal.
First, development areas on Clydeside, Lanark and Dundee to bring new trades and new jobs. Scores of new factories are being built. Over 200 are already at work, new ones and old ones converted, making, among other things, cash registers, metal houses, aero engines, clothing and food. Lack of steel and raw materials and Britain's economic situation are putting a brake on, but about 45,000 new jobs have been found, and developments in hand should find work for most of the 40,000 people still idle in those areas. This number, distressingly large as it is a quarter of what it was in 1938, and that was reckoned a fairly good year. Next, new forests. Despite planting between the wars, Scotland lacks woodland, and she's to plant a further 120,000 acres within 5 years. Eventually, she'll have nearly half the 3 million acres of new forests being planned in Britain, the state and private owners sharing the work. Third, new coal fields. In Lanarkshire, many pits are fast getting worked out, and already old slag heaps are being levelled. Within 10 years, a third of Scotland's pits will be closed. But fresh shafts are being sunk, and within those 10 years, additional new pits will be opened in the Lothians, Ayrshire and Fife, some of them remarkable both for size and advanced methods. By these plans, it is hoped that Scotland's output will, by 1958, rise by 9 million tonnes a year, and the daily output per man by nearly a third. But the transfer of miners from the old coalfields to the new won't be easy. There's lack of houses and there's the natural dislike of being uprooted. Scottish coal mining has the possibility of new life, but grave problems in labour and in housing remain.
In 1947, the coal industry was nationalised and the new Labour government was prepared to back the forecasts with money. In Ayrshire, there was a new pit at Killoch, and major redevelopment at Pennyvenny, Little Mill, Kames and Barony. In the Lothians, Kinneil Colliery was built and linked under the Forth to Valleyfield. There was Monkton Hall, Bilston Glen and Rothes.
Here is part of that new history Fife is writing, the new and dramatic architecture of Rothes Colliery, East Fife. It's odd to think that the first machines in industry were attacked by howling mobs of frightened men. It was too early then to see that the machine marked the end of an era of back-breaking, muscle-tearing, bitter physical labor. Machinery doesn't sweat, but man does. A miner certainly does. But at least at Rothes Colliery, no man does anything that a machine can do for him.
Unfortunately for Rothes, geological problems hampered progress, and it never developed its potential. Costs ran out of control and output fell well short of expectations. By 1962, just 16 years after the first sod was cut, work on the project was stopped. The loss of its major employer was a potentially fatal blow to Glenrothes, but one for which the Development Corporation was well prepared.
Glenrothes planners have been careful not to put all their industrial eggs in one basket. Their aim has been to provide a wide range of employment. This factory makes electronic components, work for young women. The Scottish Milk Marketing Board has established a large creamery at Glenrothes. Plastics, material with a future. This new factory provides many more opportunities for employment. And there's a factory making coal cutting equipment. Drums revolve in a thriving paper mill.
Today, Glenrothes, a town whose very being owes much to the NCB's master plan for coal, has recovered well from its near-death experience. In hindsight, Rothes Colliery was, in effect, stillborn, but on the southern outskirts of Kirkcaldy, another of the NCB's flagship collieries was faring better.
Seafield is a different kind of pit. You've got 2,500 men there, drawn from 13 old collieries. It's more like a factory underground. If you're working with coal, it's a dirty job. In many cases, it can be an unpleasant job. Nevertheless, it attracts men.
The coal face was 100 yards long, and you had a man for every 8 or 10 yards. It used to be 10 yards to start with, and then it was really reduced to 8. The miner had to take out these 8 yards for, let me see, what, 10 shillings. 10 shillings at that time.
The men are now getting the wages they deserve and have deserved for a long time.
Well, I never was club-minded, actually, until I came here. And the first night we were welcomed into the place.
It's the people. Everything. I mean,
Good set of lads about here. I mean, they're in real good mixers, as you should know.
Is it?
Sunny.
Well, they went away last Saturday, I think. A real bustling scene, I believe it.
A lot of folk in the town knew that I didn't ken. At one time I ken everybody in the town.
We were complete strangers when we walked into this hall, and there's very few people that we don't know now.
We've had a fair influx of English people because of the new industries, and I was told to hear an outsider come to Kirkcaldy and say that they don't like it.
So all seemed well in the Kirkcaldy of 1975. Both Seafield and Francis Colliery were producing in quantity, but the big picture told a very different story. The canon of Stirling Castle had overlooked the pit bing of Paul Mays for decades, but in 1958 a new colliery, planned further down the road at Erth, was halted almost before it had begun. This time the malaise was not geological, it was technological, clean and plentiful. The energy battle had begun. Even the coal trains themselves were powered by diesel. The National Coal Board realised that a fitter, leaner, more competitive industry was needed if it was to maintain its markets. The unions knew it too, but it was a bitter pill to swallow. Uneconomic pits were closed, even some profitable pits. Those with few reserves or those too small to adapt went the same way. 140 of them in 14 years.
By Clyde's bonny banks, as I sadly did wander among the pit heaps as evening drew nigh, I spied a wee lassie all dressed in deep mourning, a weeping and wailing way money's the sigh. I stepped up beside her and thus did address her. Come tell me, young lass, of your sorrow and pain. A sobbing and sighing, at last she did answer. Johnny Murphy, kind sir, was my ain true love's name. 21 years of age, full in youth and good looking, to work in the mines at High Blantyre came. The wedding was fixed, all the guests were invited. That calm summer's evening, young Johnny was slain. The explosion was heard, all the women and children with pale anxious faces, they haste to the mine. When the news was made out, the hills rang with their mourning. 207 young miners were slain. New husbands and wives, and sweethearts and brothers, that Blantyre explosion they'll never forget. And all ye young miners that hear my sad story, shed a tear for the victims that Slade Taylor rest.
True, some smaller pits which had escaped nationalisation did survive. This one in Sutherland, courtesy of the need for coal in the adjoining brickworks. But the forces ranged against the coal industry were strong and getting stronger. The National Coal Board put its faith in rationalisation, investment in the larger collieries, and mechanisation.
Coal mining has been changing rapidly. Today it's an industry of new machines and new methods. 80% of our coal is cut and loaded mechanically. The men in the industry have always been, by tradition, craftsmen. Today, they have to be skilled technicians as well. They operate the self-advancing supports that are installed on more and more coal faces. The miner of today relies upon many different skills and crafts for his safety and security while he gets on with the job. Transport underground is mechanized too, both the transport of coal and the transport of materials. And men ride today to their workplace, maybe a mile or two from the pit bottom. Skill and science, they go hand in hand. This is the control console of one of Britain's remotely operated coal faces, the only ones of their type in the world. On the face itself, not a man. Just a cutter loader travelling up and down, slicing off coal, while self-advancing supports move across to support the roof. The man who operates the controls of the console is a miner. As coal comes out, the face moves forward. Advancing the main roadways is another of the scores of jobs to be done in a mine.
When once we got used to it and became mechanised, they opened Bilson Glen, the brand new colliery, and their idea was to put the Rosewell men in there first and they would learn every mechanisation, right? So what they says to us when we were in Rosewell, they sent a big director from the National Coal Board, a big meeting, and he told us all there and then, you men will be the first men into Bilson Glen. And the first thing you do is throw away your shovels. Shovels are finished. This is total mechanised, which just wasn't true. You would never have got it without shovels.
Well, the biggest improvement would be the supports, the big chokes was for safety, when they brought the mechanisation in. But the bad side was the stour, with the machines. If they were cutting a bit stone through the coal, the stour was terrible. You'd even be on the bottom rod and the stour would be coming down, you'd be shouting up down the hailers to the machinemen, have you got the water on that machine? They would have the water on it, but just the stour. I've even seen men walking out the face line because the stour was too bad. They would go away to fresh air bit till the machine had cut the coal, and then they would come back and do their job.
You're actually working down the pit and all the machinery's going. You never hear all of these things. But we as surveyors, I say, we try and get in when it was nice and quiet, and if there's no machinery working and you're working up the face line doing survey work, you hear every wee bit of creak and groan and wee pings of coal coming out, whereas when the machinery is going or the belts are going, you never hear it. But when it's dead quiet, it can be a wee bit eerie.
When I got my face training, it was hand stripping. What is it called? You know, pick and shovel. You crawled up to what you called was your stent, which would be roughly about 30 feet. And it was a wee mark. Of course, the boy next to you would say, "There, you start at that strap and you work up." Simple as that. When mechanisation came along, there was a big difference, easily. And of course, when you went to Bilson, compared with Anderson, the air in the sections were a lot better than the air in the hand stripping runs, because you were only getting the air for another district, you know what I mean? So it was another big plus, you know. But there could be a lot of hard work in mechanised runs too, because a lot of the work had to be done manually for buy, and a lot of the lifting and whatnot to build these things, you know. But it was still a great boost to the manpower compared with the hand stripping. There's no doubt about it.
The Samson coal cutter consists of 3 units, each manufactured separately. Gearing and motor are strong and compact, and rigid alignment is maintained by spigots registering the 3 units. The machine is entirely controlled from the haulage end. While the jib and sprocket assembly are being fitted, we must see the chain manufacture. M&C insist upon making their own, and here again the latest machines have been installed. Now this one is drilling, facing and reaming pick boxes for a strap link chain. Another mills the correct radius on links for the 37K chain. After manufacture, components of the chain are case hardened. They shower from the furnace into a bath of quenching oil. And now assembly. The balanced design keeps all stresses within the chain itself. Rivet bushes are made in one of M&C's own automatic machines. A hydraulic riveting machine joins pick box and link together. The complete cutter on test shows a reliable and efficient chain. Also an M&C patent is the spiral gummer, which diverts coal dust and gum from the cutter chain. Another 19-inch Samson is ready for action, and its official flame-proof certificate is a passport valid anywhere. But the 19-inch Samson, though popular in this country, is by no means the most spectacular of M&C coal cutters. The arc shearer has the same solid construction allied to the versatility which is essential in room and pillar work. In spite of its fierce appearance, it may even allow a tame motor car to pass under the jib, which is raised and lowered by power-operated jacks. The simultaneous drive to gear head and undercarriage makes the machine easy to maneuver. The usual maximum length of the jib is 9 feet, which gives a 21-foot wide cut in one operation. The convenient crawler mounting of the arc shearer is repeated in the Samson loader, which, of all M&C products, looks the most ingenious in operation. Robot-like gathering arms load coal at the rate of 4 tons per minute onto the scraper chain conveyor.
The drive for efficiency spawned new ideas and also new machinery to put these ideas into practice. For the miners, there were new dangers to add to the old.
Anybody who's worked underground any length of time is bound to have some sort of dust problem on the lungs, I would think. Because in the early days there wasn't a lot of dust suppression. They didn't used to bother, you know. That's in the 50s I'm talking about, 50s, early 60s. It was dust suppression, like, but it wasn't very effective. It's still not effective today.
As well as I said, I got my hand broken. There was a man killed. He got his head crushed in between the two tubs. When we used to what you call coupling on. You used to couple them on, and you used to use a big ball in between the two tubs, bigger than your head, so as when you were in there, if anything happened, it would hit the big ball, so you would be safe. And he didn't use the big ball, and he was killed actually. His head was crushed. And
in between these years, when I started in Arneson Colliery, there was a big accident with the hatches that came up the Duke. The man was down inspecting it when the rock broke, and the hatches all went down the Duke, and the man was killed. They had to bring him up in a bag.
I was standing this side of the chute, and of course the belt ran that way. On the bottom of the chute was a mouthpiece with a plate across the front. The belt ran on troughin rollers, which was 3 rollers, 2 at an angle and 1 flat, which made the belt run like that so that the dross wouldn't spill over the side. So I'm standing there when the belt started up. Fortunately, the chute was between the troughin rollers, with a troughin roller on either side. My leg got pulled in. If there'd been a troughin roller there, I'd probably got my leg torn off. But it was hell to pay for that, of course.
There was a man leaned forward to the power supports with his head. Of course, it was low, very low. And when he leaned forward like that, his head knocked onto one of the controls, and it moved the ram forward. Of course, the gating supervisor leg was caught on the ram, and I'm afraid it took his leg off. I knew there was something wrong, but I didn't know what it was. But so I heard 1 or 2 men shouting and whatnot. It was round the other side of a conveyor to me. I put the button in, went round, and the chap says, all I said was, "Help me."
Every time there was an accident, the surveyors had to survey the scene, and that meant surveying the distance between the pit props to make sure they were all complying with the regulations. And you had the occasional ones when men were injured, so you'd have to do a precise survey where the man was found, and maybe a finger 2 yards away and a thumb here and there, mark them on the drawings, all for the safety officer. So these were a bit gruesome, some of these ones.
The man who deserved every penny you got, you blame me.
The National Coal Board's investment and closure programme resulted in record levels of production per man shift, but the industry was unable to react quickly to changing markets. To its list of competitors in the energy market was added natural gas, and the domestic fuel market was all but lost. Yet there were some notable successes. The Kincardine power station was just one of many to use coal, and low-grade coal at that. And a bold scheme to deliver coal by underground conveyor was enough to make it the fuel of choice for the massive new power station being built at Longannet. It was to be coal delivered by wire, but it was still not enough. Pressure on prices put pressure on productivity, pressure on jobs and pressure on wages. The strike in 1974 resulted in the 3-day week and brought down the government. Yet even in their hour of victory, unwittingly the miners had laid the foundation for the industry's ultimate demise. They would not be allowed to wield such industrial or political power ever again. Yet, but a decade later, the closure of Polmaise was revealed as the first of many planned by a government which withdrew subsidies and opened up the market to cheap imports. The miners faced a stark choice: to accept the slow but certain death of the coal industry as they knew it, or to stand and fight.
Ted Heath was put out of power because of the miners. And then Maggie Thatcher, when she came in, she was making sure she was going to make a name for herself. And that was part of it. And she taken the miners on, and the miners split themselves, which was a downfall. The miners split themselves. Nottingham wouldn't go on strike. Yorkshire went on strike. Scotland went on strike. And that didn't help at all.
Mrs. Thatcher was going to close a lot of the pits. This was us getting information for our union, you know. So when we had our vote, they decided to go on strike, but we didn't think it was going to go as long. And some of us reckoned that after about 3 or 4 months, and we were getting bothered with the police and that, and we could see that Mrs. Thatcher wasn't going to move. We thought it should have been, some of us anyway, thought it should have been cried off. Okay, what I mean? But as I say, it lasted a year, and it caused a lot of bad feeling between men. Because when we went back to the pit after the strike, the hangover wasn't there, the atmosphere wasn't there, Ken. And as I say, there were families broke up and everything, Ken.
Margaret Thatcher was never got about. And let's face it, I mean, the unions, the pit unions were strong at that time, and she didn't want that. She wanted everybody to pull their forelock and say, aye, we'll just do exactly what you tell us.
Come gather round me, people, and I'll sing to you a song about a famous battle that went on for so long. Well, it's a tale of grief and courage, of pain and bravery, one of the finest pages written in our history. Well, we all know songs that tell of worker struggles long ago, of UCS, Tulpuddle, Shrewsbury, Pentonville, and so I'm here to sing to you the praises of the women and the men who dared the might of Tory spite, the future to defend. 'Twas in March in 1984 the gauntlet was thrown down, when MacGregor told the NUM these pits are closing down. Ah, get on your bike, MacGregor, the miners' answer came. We fought the board in 74 and we'll fight you once again. From South Wales across to Yorkshire, from Scotland down to Kent, the miners showed the NCB that what they said they meant. Except the scabs who sold the future out to Thatcher and her gang, and turned traitor to their class, their names forever damned. And in Fleet Street and in Downing Street a wondrous sight was seen. Newfound converts to democracy soon all began to scream. You can't strike without a ballot, well-fed mouths were heard to bleat. You won't ballot us out of our jobs, we're voting with our feet. Soon armies of blue uniforms were marching through the land, with horses, dogs and riot shields and truncheons in both hands. But the miners took on everything the government could throw, and went back again to battle on with shouts of here we go. So here's to Arthur Scargill, Heathfield and McGahey too, who led the fight together in defence of me and you, and Malcolm Pitt and Davy Hamilton and the rest of them as well, who were torn from home and family and locked in prison cells. But the battle will go on until the working class is won, for the right to work and decent lives belongs to everyone. So it's forward now in unity, let's share the miners' load. There can only be one answer, socialism, here we go.
And so they went. Amid division and bitter recrimination, the cause was lost. Within 5 years of the strike, of the once burgeoning Scottish deep mining industry, only the Long Annet complex remained. The power station of Long Annet still receives its supply of coal, but this is open cast coal delivered by road. The conveyor lies idle, the shaft is boarded up, and the remnants of a once vibrant industry lie rotting in its own backyard. Scottish deep coal mining is no more.